I like when people tell me about their how they lopped their finger off and with the chainsaw, or how they stuck a fork in their leg by accident. I mean, I actually encourage that kind of conversation. I think when people undergo things like undergo medical trauma, they just become intrinsically interesting, no matter how boring they might be in real life.
The pain I experienced that day lying there on the asphalt was the worst I'd ever experienced in my life. I know God had a purpose in it. I mean to be run over. What happened was I was run over by a tram in the parking lot.
We all basically know, I think we pretty much know everything we need to know about first aid. So the art of bleeding is here to reawaken that knowledge. And we use unconscious, we speak to the unconscious.
We speak to the unconscious in its own language, using symbols, images, even dance. Research shows this to be the most effective means of preparing students for emergencies.
So, music and movies instead of books? That does sound magical. Those movie projectors make my head swim, but in a happy way.
So it's a sort of, it's a more creative, intuitive, and artistic approach to teaching first aid and teaching people how to deal with medical emergencies.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Art of Bleeding's beloved mascot, Abram, the safety ape.
Oh, he's a friend to all. He's a child's best friend, and Abram is the Art of Bleeding safety mascot. That's the answer, I suppose. Not enough blood. That was the problem. There was supposed to be at least 2 gallons more of blood that would explode out of the gorilla's head. The doppelganger, other Abram, when Abram was undergoing that sort of psychological transformation. This is the blood bag that was in the gorilla's head that didn't explode. It's hard, I've been in the gorilla suit and you really don't have good visibility, so there were some problems negotiating. It's sort of like a big blood water bag. It's filled with cherry snow cone syrup, which I found is a really economical alternative to stage blood, plus it's, it draws ants, and that's important.
Maybe my magic ambulance will find you, just lie very still. Maybe my magic ambulance will find you.
This magic power, though, perhaps we should clarify what you mean. After all, many of us have been taught to believe that magic and safety don't mix.
Oh, I'm not talking about that kind of magic. Not that pulling a rabbit out of a hat stuff. It's more of a special kind of awareness. Tapping into another level.
And what really compels me about the metaphysics is the way that it's wrapped up with people's emotional outbursts, like we saw in the show. The way metaphysics on one level is supposed to be very abstract, but it's like the most important things in our lives are essentially metaphysical, and can lead to all sorts of embarrassing behavior, wetting pants, screaming, crying.
Intense emotional experience, both positive and negative, is key in opening these gateways into the unconscious.
I was sick a lot when I was a kid. I mean, not, I was sick as I had some kind of weird bird disease, and I loved being sick. And my mom is a nurse, but I can't really explain this sort of morbidity that's involved. So suddenly she's naked on the table with her legs spread, and it's just horrifying. It's just horrifying, and then the blood starts. I mean, the water breaks, and I'm horrified. I don't know what this red smear is. I guess something else I probably don't want to know. And then he has a little placenta that you probably, you're trying to avoid that kind of thing. I don't know how they put him in here. And then I guess if you have to do a cesarean, you just do it like that. One of my favorite things in the house. Margaret got this on eBay. Also, Frigid Junior. It's special embalming fluid for babies. This is our new child. It's rubber, so it's really built for roughhousing. I mean, I can, do what I want with this thing. It's really pretty tough. you know, I'm wearing the lab coat, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. Before I moved in, Margaret had this room had sort of a bit of a kind of turn of the century medical feel, which I've just gone ahead and kind of teased out to like ludicrous extremes. So, and there's a lot of, like, in here there's lots of little nods to the occult and metaphysical interests that my wife and I share. Look at, isn't that beautiful? The blood fountain. I mean, that's something like that. You know, that's an ideal. That's, I keep that up to remind me what we need to do. Eventually, you know, I mean, blood, it's everywhere. Apparently we're filled with it, and it'll be in the show. I'm interested, and my wife is particularly interested in Santeria and Palo and Macumba and all those Afro-Cuban religions. And it was a room that didn't really have any purpose until it became a voodoo chapel. And now we come up here. It was called a meditation room. My wife actually does come up here and meditates a bit. And for me, it was a fun opportunity to do kind of art installation. Bleeding as an art form. If we can accept bleeding as an art form, I think what we're doing is an art form too. This is fun. This is a dredging hook. This is for dredging dead people out of lakes, and that was from eBay. It's not morbid because it's, you know, it's about finding the body, so it's not morbid. It's not sick and morbid. I made her as you see her. Well, there's a long story. This was made for a Cacophony Society event. And the story was that she had, her name is Bubbles LeBlanche, and she had been an exotic dancer who dabbled in the occult. So she was dug up, coffin was pry open, crickets poured out, and people reacted. And then we began the sex magic. Necrophilia, that doesn't really go down too well with a lot of people. The Cacophony Society is and was either an important guerrilla art movement or an excuse for hooligans to gather. The Cacophony Society started in San Francisco in the late 70s, early 80s. It grew out of another group called the Suicide Club. We didn't have a word for it back then, but I guess it became called culture jamming. So we do stuff that was like social, kind of like excursions to the fringe, field trips to the fringe, we'd call them. And then we do stunts, public stunts, kind of guerrilla theater type stuff, and pranks. I think there's a universal fascination with mayhem and violence, and people look for, I mean, you know, sports provides that for people, but we just sort of made it more psychological, I guess, brutalizing people's like cherished fantasies about Santa Claus, or, I mean, you know, people want to be aggressive and they like brutality.
We got the cement cuddlers through, so the plastic explosives are in place.
You might want to take a look at the sign we have up here.
Excuse me.
No,
you're gonna answer to somebody. Okay. So.
What'd you say?
Oh,
it was something he should have said.
Okay. Here, please, can you just take it?
Thank you. Not funny.
Because of things that happened in the 70s, the idea of performance art as being something that can be outside of galleries and in kind of that lowbrow rock and roll world, people would call what we did performance art, and I don't care, that's fine. People fucking hate performance art. It's like the genre that everybody loves to hate, and I know that if people are going to see Art of Bleeding in that form, and they will hate us because of that.
Why did the accident happen?
I would like this to be a little bit more than throwing buckets of blood. I would like people to be able to identify with the stories and kind of, you know, enjoy them in sort of a humanistic way.
Weird TV.